Hey y'all, it is February the 9th, 2020, and we are live on the internet right now. And I just want to jump into things, alright? We're gonna plan to have a typical Sunday type of broadcast, and that is a bonus, alright? So, you know what I'm saying? It's on top of what we already get the Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, and stuff. Little bonus, and it is gonna be willy nilly. All right, we are kind of going a little bit random tonight. Now that I think about it, that's kind of how it is every night. But we're gonna do it the same way, the same exact way, pretty much. Just to let y'all know. Um, we're not gonna start off today's broadcast with a cover song because I didn't look one up. Not today. All right, we're just gonna jump into something. Actually, shout out to our man Valentine Hogg. I don't know if everyone's aware of him out there. I keep my eye on him. All right, he's some of my people over there in India. It's good to know people all around the world. I don't know what you say if you're a flat earther. You don't say all around the world, I don't think, but whatever it is, it's good to have people all around the world or in different countries and stuff. You get the lowdown from them. Our man in India is, of course, Valentine Hogg. He's got information and stuff. We're going to just go to that real quick because I only caught the beginning of it right before the broadcast. And I got a feeling he's going to touch upon some very interesting things. And so instead of a cover song, and Valentine Hogg, not only does he make his own music and produce it, and you can find it on his channel. It's very entertaining, and he has a wonderful voice. Not only that, but he'll come and provide different kinds of content. And so not musically, not in a musical sense, Valentine Hogg is going to set the mood for us tonight. Because I've seen part of this video. I got a feeling he's about to get deep. And he's talking about the future. Right? He's talking about what's on the horizon and what's to come. I'm going to play it real quick. And then, we're going to see what he has to say. Insight straight from India, and it's escaping my Mumbai, I believe. Straight from the big city streets of Mumbai. All right, you heard it here first, unless you heard it from Valentine Hogg himself. But without further ado, I want to find out what he's talking about when he says disaster is coming, because a lot of us are thinking about some certain things that concern us and may very well turn out disastrous. What is Valentine Hogg got for us right now? It's about time that we find out without further ado, and I'll holler at y'all on the other side about what we find out.
God is giving us the brain to create technology, and technology is Hey everyone, welcome to my channel called Valentine Hogg, and I'm a singer, songwriter, storyteller, story maker. So today I'll be telling you a story that is going to happen in the coming future. Okay, many people may not believe it, but yeah, it's going to happen one day.
Y'all, I don't know if you're getting the audio. I'm trying to get it situated. I don't know if you could hear it just right, but if it's low, I'm sorry about that. If you're wearing headphones and stuff, you find the audio to be low. I have it as high as I can right now. And, that being said, Valentine Hogg again, he's talking about the times we're living in.
Maybe I may not be there and you're watching this video, or maybe somebody's watching this video. So hanging around with it from bedroom to bathroom, from bathroom to kitchen, from kitchen to, wherever. But wherever we go,
Or we might be around the same age, but yeah, me too. I could have never imagined about this cell phone world that we're living in. I could have never imagined. Anyways.
okay. So today's topic is about, and many scams happening. It's all because of the phone. Many, scandals, MMS, okay, stealing of SIM cards and stealing of numbers, and so on. This crime continues. So when I was a kid, I never knew that we're already in the phone era, so I don't need to tell you much about the phone era. You know the market, how it is, how the companies are cheating. Today they try to dodge people, and people are fools. They keep buying phones. I keep buying phones because I have no other options. Okay, these drones will be first. It will come very costly. Only people rich can afford it, and slowly, as the market grows, the drones will be available like everyone having mobile phones. Okay, now these drones are going to be like this. These drones can talk. These drones can carry, the things like pick and drop services, and then these drones can take out aerial, video footages of different things. So the drone era is going to be a more dangerous era. Now suppose you are sleeping with your girlfriend, your wife, and then you forgot to close the window, the curtain in the 20th floor. What's going to happen then? Someone is going to take out video MMS and going to blackmail you again. So crime is going to increase in the drone era. Drone era is not going to be a very favorable era for the new generations. Okay, frankly speaking, according to my point of view, where I'm looking at, I don't see the drone era going to be something very useful. The more the technology comes, the more destruction comes. Okay, God is giving us the brain to create technology, and technology is going to hit us back. The more we try to learn the universe, actually we are going far away from it. But scientists, they don't care. Okay, they're billionaires, big talks, big people, big companies. They're manufacturing drones and going to destroy the earth in the nearby future. Now the main thing is, what will happen if you just come out of your house and then you are not allowed to wear a cap, or you have to always wear a helmet. Why? Because any drones will crash in the sky and fall on your head and break your arms and may hit your head. Okay, may break your car's window, may break your window, and may break anything. Maybe you are taking your child and going in the road and suddenly a drone hits your child. Okay, so this is going to happen. If this company starts manufacturing drones, many people will be dying unwantedly. Okay, like the world's most death case happens in this bike, whether you name it, whichever bikes are two-wheelers. Compared to the others, two-wheelers are very dangerous and many people die every day in the world, and yet no one cares. Okay, so the same thing, drone era will be something like this, that many people will be dying, many people will be injured, many people will have no money to do the medication, but drones will not go. They won't let them go. They want to sell them more. Okay, they're going to make it cheaper and cheaper. So compared to the phone era and the drone era, if the phone era is 50% risky, drone era is going to be 150% risky. So guys, I don't know whether I'll be there at that time, at that drone era, but if YouTube still exists and my video still exists and people are still watching this video, remember that we 19th century people who was clever. Yeah, we are clever, we created many new things, but it's going to be harming the next generation and their generations. So that was the basic things that I just had in my mind. So guys, what do you think about the phone era and what do you think about the drone era? Don't forget to give your views in the comment section so we can have a little chit chat. Till then, enjoy my songs, enjoy my stories, and bye bye.
That was our man, Valentine Hogg, over there. And these are boots on the ground over there in India. And like I said, over in the big, mean streets of Mumbai. Actually, you know what? I'm going to take the time out to go because I like to check on my people. And we're going to go to Google and we're going to take whatever Google says with a grain of salt because chances are they're not giving us the whole story. I don't have to tell you, but that's kind of how it goes. And I want to see what's going on as far as the news. I believe that's how you spell it, Mumbai, India. As far as what is being said in the news in Mumbai, India. Now, that was a grave foreshadowing that we just received from our man. And it may not sound very positive, but it was probably leaning towards the idea of being more realistic, right? And I know a lot of people can get the gist of what he's getting at, our man Valentine, talking about the cell phone age, and then linking that into the drone age, the phone age to the drone age, um, and how the drone age is actually going to be even more dangerous. In fact, a lot of these clones might fall out of the sky and bonk us on the heads, man. We're going to have to wear helmets and stuff like that. And although I would venture to say, a lot of people probably venture to say that's the least of our problems, getting bonked on the head by walking outside. Yeah, certainly people are going to get bonked on the head. Yeah, people are going to get killed. Probably. I mean, chances are. But more so, I would have to definitely agree with the surveillance aspect of it. Trust me, I've seen a lot of different ways in which drones can be used to surveil people on a level that they didn't understand was acceptable, and it is lots of times. For example, a long time ago, I can't remember how long, but maybe a couple of years, I came across an article, and we're not going to look for it right now, but I came across an article with an old man, and that old man was frequenting a lady of the night, but actually it wasn't during the nighttime, it's kind of during the day. Anyway, she was putting in those daytime hours in a truck, I guess. With him, you might say that's illegal. Yeah, it is. It's kind of weird. But it was in the daytime and it was in a truck, right? And they're doing whatever it is that they agreed upon doing. And the drone came around and started videotaping them, and eventually they arrested the guy for, you know, the illegal act, the illicit act. And meanwhile, I couldn't help but think that, you know, they had a whole news article about it, how they caught this old man, how they caught the lady, and they had both their mug shots and on the article and stuff. And I couldn't help but think, wow, that's a crazy invasion of their privacy, to be honest. This whole drone thing that you're doing. And perhaps, you know, that particular area was being very suspect for prostitution and those sort of deals. And maybe that's why they were using drones and flying them around. But still, I don't know if I agree with it. And not only that, they could fall out of the sky and bonk us on the head, right? And that's terrifying as well. But I want to just check out the news real quick. Right, let's check up on our people, and I do that from time to time. I know people all in different sort of countries, all right, all across the map. All right, so I like to check up in on them and see what the heck's going down. Like he was talking about Shaheen Bagaga, a Mumbai cab driver who took anti-CAA protester to police. That sounds kind of like it'd be interesting, but I have no idea what they're talking about, so I'm not gonna necessarily go into that. But Mumbai, India's richest city, wants to tax trash as property slump hits revenue. I don't know what they're talking about, but I guess it sounds interesting in its own sort of way. Um, a lot of this local news. All right, we're just going to go ahead and skip that. They did mention coronavirus and a scare, and this is at the Times of India. They're also talking about it, obviously. They say Chinese restaurants in Mumbai face heat over imported ingredients. It's kind of interesting. You know what? I guess it's good that we came across this particular item in which, you know, just like it says, people in India, they're becoming a little bit wary of ingredients coming from China. Meanwhile, I actually had that notion a little while back because I was actually going to Panda Express yesterday, I believe, or the day before. I went to Panda Express, and I couldn't help but think, well, what if they got some of these ingredients from China? All right, could those possibly, and of course it is possible, but could they possibly be contaminated with something like the coronavirus? And then I would get it because we're eating some stuff, and that's where it came from. Made me wonder about that. Right. And then I thought, well, that's kind of silly as far as thinking about Panda Express and whether or not they got Chinese ingredients coming their way. Because when you really think about it, most of the fast food restaurants, that's not to say that they get their ingredients from China, but it's not to say that they don't. All right. Any number of these restaurants could be getting ingredients from China, but nobody's really brought that up like it's a serious thing. Meanwhile, real quick about the coronavirus is everybody's talking about it. This and that speculation. I can't say what's exactly what. All right, and nor would I dare to. But it does seem as though this disease, whatever, it's been kind of like propagating itself, like in large part, at least after around about November, early November, something like that, if I understand correctly. It's been a while. So perhaps it's very possible that ingredients are coming from China and making their way into America. Is something being done about that? Maybe it is, but nobody's talking about it. That's kind of interesting. They are actually talking about it in India, but India also happens to be closer to China, and perhaps they would have more reason to think about it. All right. I don't know if people think, oh, yeah, we're across the ocean, so we don't have to think about it. But it just sounds like me to something that you would think about. All right. That being said, we're kind of jumping in the broadcast. That's the first of what we're going to talk about tonight. Might as well just bang out that coronavirus stuff. I want to thank you for anyone who wants up straggling in on this Sunday evening. Of course, we don't always have Sunday broadcasts, so people aren't aware. It might catch them by surprise, but I want to thank everybody who comes out and checks out the recording for whatever reason. It's kind of like a box of chocolates. I want to do a better job at like describing what it is that we're going to cover. That way people know and are probably enticed into coming down and watching, especially if it's on a subject that's near and dear to their hearts or something they find very intriguing. Because we got stuff on the docket right now, a few things that people might find interesting, but I didn't really put that in the title necessarily. I got to think about things like that. Technically speaking, I want to shout out to the different various people. I know that there's one who actually left me a comment a number of days ago, and I actually got to get back to that, give them a reply. But they were talking about different various ways in which we could expand this channel and, get the word out basically, and so people can find it. If people are interested in this sort of thing, and we know that people are, as far as long-winded podcasts and this and that, and discussing many different various news items, and perhaps even having an analysis on them, and maybe linking them all together in ways that together we figure out, and perhaps think about things that we ain't never thought about before. All right. That's the kind of thing that we're doing here. Some people might enjoy that. As time goes on, I think we're going to find more people who enjoy it, and I look forward to it because it's going to provide more, I don't know what the phrase is, but more hands on the pot, basically. It's going to be more brains that we put together, and we're going to figure things out. Um, and I could talk at no end about the unlimited possibilities of a program like that, in which it's just crowdsourcing information. Ultimate crowdsourcing of information is what's taking place here, in which we get down to the bottom of the nitty gritty, in which the news has never done, number one, before, and it was never capable of doing it. All right, it was obsolete from the very day in which it was created. And it's wild to look at the past and think about people who actually did that, right? Who just took what they took the news. They had like 4 channels back in the day, and they took it as gospel or something. Like it had actual legitimacy, and it doesn't. At least not anymore. Not anymore. We're on a new way. All right. So anyway, shout out to those people who say, I could do this and that. I should be doing this and that, but I've been failing to. Largely in part due to what Valentine Hogg has been talking about. And I know a lot of my listeners or contributors or whatever you call it, people who come in here on this channel. I know a lot of people understand exactly the feelings of Valentine Hogg. And that, yeah, we appreciate being able to connect with each other so efficiently, so immediately. We appreciate the satisfaction that it brings us. We really do. And it seems like it would be a good idea to know people in different various countries in order to get the wherewithal from the locals, to get it from the horse's mouth. In fact, we have some news from our boots on the ground regarding Cambodia. All right, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But, it's the convenience of it. And the fact is that ultimately it's good to talk to people, all sort of different people from different places, and get their understanding on a local basis. All right. I think we'd all agree, most of us would agree, that that's what we like. That's what we get down on the internet. At the same time, it's creating an attachment to our smart devices or whatever, our cell phones, perhaps our laptops, if we got internet connection and stuff like that. But more so than anything else, it would be the cell phones that we take with us. No matter what, we're taking it with us. And it's pretty much surveilling us. It's totally listening to every word that we're saying and every word that's said to us. And just anything else. It's, of course, videotaping when we don't want it to. Things like this. Right? And so therefore we're struggling with it. We're like, we want to get away from it. We want to have the benefits of it, but we also want to get away from it because we feel it, the hold that's taken on us for this technology. I mean, it's very divine, right? The fact is that human beings have carved out all this technology and figured it out, right? And might I say admirable, right? Especially in certain places where innovation really, it sparks into a flame. It's kind of admirable, but at the same time, the technology, it will be the end of us, and we can all kind of appreciate that, I suppose, at this point, right? I think there's no excuses, right? There really is no excuses for the fact is that I don't put that much effort into spreading this channel around, spreading this podcast around, and what it is we do here. There's no real excuse, but if there was an excuse, it would be that I also want to get the hell away from this internet stuff, I like knowing, I like having wherewithal, especially around the world, about what's going on. I really do, and in that we're all connected, and we're all fighting pretty much the same battle, whether we know it or not. It transcends borders and things of that nature. We're all doing that, so I like to know about it when it's happening all over the world, so that I can kind of estimate what's gonna be in the future. Say for a person like me in America, all right. Typically, we see the end part of disasters here in America. Like all sort of disaster will take place in another country, and then we might feel the reverberations from it here in America, all right? That's kind of a privilege, and I would agree that is a privilege, right? All right. So, but we want to do that. We want to get away from technology a little bit as well. And it's a struggle. It really is a struggle, all right? And I'm just lazy, pretty much. I'm lazy with it, all right? That being said, I appreciate all y'all, and we're gonna go ahead and talk about some things. We don't have any takers right now, so there's nobody co-hosting right now. I guess I'm just gonna do it all by myself, all right? But there is a few things that I did want to pop on here and talk about, because we're gonna try and have a broadcast on Monday. That would be tomorrow night, all right? Regular scheduled time. All right, we're gonna try to do that. We're gonna try to do it legit and official, but at the same time, we're not gonna have enough time to get through everything. And the thing is about, you probably already know about this channel because you're here, is we stay synced up with stories. We will take on a story and an event or whatever. We'll take on a little thing to investigate, and we'll hear about it in the news. We'll get all sort of angles from it, some perspectives maybe about what's taking place that certain news event, and then we will do follow-ups on it, and we'll continue to follow up on it, and we will continue to follow up on it, and we'll never stop following up actually. And it's an idea that's kind of new. Obviously, it's not really been practiced very well, right, in the old obsolete type of media. But we're going to follow up on stuff. So with that being said, there's a number of things that I've been looking into, different cases and stuff like that, and I want to talk about them. All right. And I want to talk about some other stuff, some new stuff, all right, to bring up some new stuff and some new developments, and just news items, not only news items, but sociologically what's taking place all around us, all right, and our existential environment, and all sort of words that I put together. I don't know exactly what they mean, but we're gonna try and pull it off right now, okay? So with that being said, let's go to my bookmarks, y'all, because I went and I sculpted out a little bit of something, these developments, a little bit of a program of things that we could talk about right now. And so I went ahead and I bookmarked stuff, It's being responsible. I was looking up stuff, investigating things. There's some things that we need to talk about. All right. That I'm kind of embarrassed that I haven't brought them up for a few days. In fact, sometimes even a couple of weeks. All right. One example, I guess, that just popped up right now. I guess it was already here on my browser, is the Arabella Parker case. Now, if I had to guess, we haven't brought up the Arabella Parker case for a number of weeks to more than likely a month, or at least the better part of a month. All right, so we're touching base about that again. It's a particular incident that I think will give us some very, very keen insight on what's going on. And I got a feeling that everybody knows what's going on as far as fake news, as far as cover-ups being done, as far as people trying to distract from what is really truly important and what's really honestly crucial for us to focus on. We know that people are doing these things, this fake news. We know that they're doing the cover-ups. We know that they're redirecting and stuff like that. And we're getting down to the bottom of it. So you got to get down to into the nitty-gritty of not only what people are saying, but why people are saying these things that they're saying on the news, all right? And some publications are actually better than others. That being said, I still have no reason to not give props to the Daily Item. As far as I could tell, they run a ship-shape organization and are doing a pretty dang good job. But the thing is, someone's going to have to elaborate on what it is they're saying, because I don't think they have the capacity to really get down into the essence of the matter. Now, Arabella Parker, most are probably going to remember who I'm talking about, but for those who don't, it's a child who died, a young child, 3 years old, a little girl named Arabella. And she was out of the Pennsylvania area. And this was a while back. This was a while back in which she died. I believe, if I'm getting the dates correctly, although sometimes I get them jumbled up, I want to say in October. Sometime in October is when this whole incident took place, all right? In which this little girl was abused quite dramatically. Now, we're not going to go over all the details of how abused this little girl was, but just suffice it to say, for example, the little girl received brain trauma to the point is that part of her brain had to be removed. Right? That's only one detail of the rampant abuse. I mean, just to give you an overview, she had many different injuries that looked like, reports say allegedly that they looked like they were various different ages, the injuries, and in that she's getting abused for quite some time, right, before she wound up actually succumbing to a specific incident in which she was very brutally abused, right, like I said, to the point of having to have some of her brain removed, right. And we don't want to be too long with it because most people are familiar with this particular case. We've been following it. We followed it more closely a little while back. But, all right, so just to be very brief, the case involves, okay, this girl, she's actually gone into a coma, this little girl, because she was abused. They removed her brain. They tried to do this and that, save her life. It was not going to work. She went into a coma, and eventually she wound up coming out of the coma for a little while, and then she wound up dying. All right. This abuse has always been pointed square at the mother of the child, the mother of Arabella, which would be Samantha Del Camp, and her boyfriend, which would be a Gerard Burgess. And I've noted that the accusations, as they typically do go, were pointed more directly at Gerard Burgess and Mr. Gerard Burgess, right? And as I've stated before, I'll go ahead and state it again. Everybody involved in this situation, and there are more people involved in this situation. We're going to talk about it actually in this particular article. I noticed there's two people over in the building. I shout out to y'all too. And I appreciate y'all. I see y'all there. Leave me a comment real quick and let me know what it is that we're going to holler about. This Sunday evening, real chill. We're going to be straight chilling, but whatever it is, we want to know, especially if it's in your local area and stuff's really going down. I want to hear about it from you, all right? But in the meantime, we're talking about this old case that we've been talking about since way back. And we're bringing up some of the developments. It's not too many developments, I gotta say, as far as this particular story, or as far as you can find them on Google. But we got some to include this article that we're gonna go over some of it. I don't know if we're gonna read all of it necessarily, but it actually, if I remember correctly, it's kind of a short article. Yeah, it is. See, it's not too long. All right, so it's really not much developments. But like I stated before, just as typical, yeah, the blame is being put on Samantha Delcamp. Yeah, it is. And it's also being put on Gerard Burgess. Logistically speaking, you have to understand that, at least from the reports, from the articles, Samantha Delcamp is being charged with homicide because the little girl did die, but as an accomplice to homicide, as an accomplice to it, right? And of course, there would be people out there, most people out there, who they would question, why is it that we're so interested in the semantics? I bet you. I bet there's a lot of people out there who'd be like, well, why do you care so much? The girl died. They're both being charged with homicide and stuff. They're both going to see jail time and stuff like that. Why are you so interested? And it kind of blows my mind, but just to be on record, why I'm so interested is because of justice for Arabella Parker. I know there's a lot of people out there, to include people who are very close to that local area, and people who are related to Arabella Parker, and they might want justice for Arabella Parker, and they've made it known that yeah, that's what they want, and they'll get it regardless of what. But the thing is, I have my doubts of just how much justice that people actually want, and how much they're actually go out of their way in order to ensure for little Arabella Parker, rest in peace. I have my doubts, and in that, the questions that I'm asking are, okay, we know this little girl died, all right, and we know several people done lied about it, and there's some covering up going on. We know that these two people were present, the Gerard Burgess, the Samantha Delcamp, and all of this. This is all agreed upon, all right. But my question is, who did this to Arabella Parker? And of course, the simple answer a lot of people would say is Gerard Burgess. Remember, he was accused of it. Meanwhile, there's different articles in which Gerard Burgess somehow, some way, puts out the message of, hey, I did not do this, right? And meanwhile, the whole time, I'm not advocating for anybody. It's like, at all. Like, I'm not advocating for anybody in this case. No matter, regardless of what happened, they're both irresponsible to the point of absolute criminality. But the thing is, if we were to try and strive for justice, we would want to know exactly how it is that this girl got hurt. Who hurt this little girl? And we want to know, and we want to know for certain. We don't want to just go by hearsay and, oh, because Samantha Delcamp said this and that. It's becoming an interesting situation of he said, she said, and I actually want to get to the bottom of it. All right. So this article right here, it's a real short article. It's actually about this lady, Christy Willis, and she's kind of someone who got caught up in the mix. And it's kind of a warning for everybody out there. It's like, okay, you might not be the one out here wilding out and doing weird, abusive things to children. All right. But also, don't get caught up. All right. Don't get caught up hanging around or being associated with people who you even suspect would act and behave this way towards children. Right? Because if you let it slide, you turn your eye away and you say, "Oh, I don't see this. Oh, no, I don't know," and oh, it must not be as bad as I think. Well, you're just gonna get yourself all caught up. And this is an article and an exhibition of that. All right, so we're gonna find out about this lady, Christy Willis. If you haven't heard of her, is from out of Sunbury. Christy Willis will remain locked up on $200,000 cash bail after Northumberland County President Judge Charles Saylor denied her reduction request on Monday. All right, so you can imagine how that's going. Willis, at age 50, is the mother of accused killer Gerard Burgess. And mind you, how it's like I like the Daily Item, but mind you, how they word things is very interesting. Accused killer, well, he is accused, and so I'll give him that. He's accused of it. That's Gerard Burgess, 19, of Trevorton. She's charged with providing numerous false and misleading statements and attempted to prevent authorities from investigating the abuse of a 3-year-old Arabella Parker, according to the state police. So that's kind of an interesting note that she has something to do with it. She's doing a little bit of lying and covering up on her own part. And you can imagine a world of possibilities, but just to be very simple, that she's trying to somehow, some way, finagle her stepson, if I understand correctly, Gerard Burgess, finagle like his getting out and squirming out of justice, all right? Or she was all caught up in the mix and she never really understood what was going on, and she might have done a little bit of lying. The article is going to talk about it. Quote, "My whole life has changed," Willis told Saylor. I have to worry about losing my car, my home, and my job." And that's very real, right? If you get caught up in that, now you're in jail and now you can't post bond and stuff, you're going to wind up losing your car, all right? Like, it's not very often is GoFundMe going to work out for you. As far as you're going to lose all your stuff, your car, your home, your job, and all this. So that's what I'm saying. It's like a world of hurt that you're going to get yourself into by even complying with people who are asking you to lie. Or, I mean, if some people come to you in frantic, panting voices and ask you to say something that doesn't make no sense, just hang up the phone and be like, I don't know y'all. And hang up the phone because you don't want to get mixed up with this, right? So Northumberland County District Attorney Tony Tulowitz asked Saylor to deny the bail reduction based on the charges. Troopers said Burgess beat, see again, look, troopers said Burgess beat Arabella. Okay, troopers said it. Why? Because they saw it? No, they didn't. They said it because Samantha Del Camp said it. Alright, so Burgess beat Arabella so bad that she needed part of her brain removed, and in fact, yes, she did. So Willis faces felony intimidation. I don't know all the details about that, but felony intimidation, retaliation, or obstruction. I guess or obstruction, and she wasn't intimidating, and I'd never heard of her doing that. But obstruction in child abuse cases, felony hindering apprehension and prosecution, and a misdemeanor charge of false reports to law enforcement, i.e., covering up for some people. She shouldn't have done it. Willis claims in a hearing in front of Shamokin District Judge John Jembrick in October that state police misunderstood her, and they might have very well misunderstood her. And that's the slippery slope that you'll find yourself in, a dangerous trap of troopers accidentally misunderstanding pretty much the entire situation and pretty much operating on their emotions. Quote, "They didn't understand what I was saying when they interviewed me," and that may or may not be the case. I'm not sure. I would like to see the transcript, but Willis told Jambik, she said, I can't tell them what happened because I wasn't there. Now, truth be told, more than likely she was not there, this lady. More than likely she received a frantic phone call, and in that she actually, if I remember correctly, she's actually a nurse or something like that, and so might actually have insight and on how to treat a child who's just been bashed in the brain, who's actually seizing up on the ground and not really breathing properly. So, arresting trooper Brian Siebert said Willis lied in two different interviews, saying that she was sitting at a kitchen table and Parker was eating a sandwich before falling to the ground and having a seizure. All right, so that was a lie in which she said that she actually witnessed something happening, and that's when she pretty much sealed the deal for herself. And I don't know if the troopers maybe misunderstood what she was saying, but it sounds like she was saying that she was there and that she witnessed the child fall. And maybe she was told that the child fell. And maybe she believed it, all right? Don't believe anything. Pretty much back up and don't say anything. And if you back up from the whole situation, because really it's none of your business as far as this lady, Christy Willis. If you back up and don't say a damn word, you probably won't end up your ass in jail, all right? That's all I'm going to say. And so I can't say that I'm necessarily sorry for this lady, but sending out a warning for people out there that serious situations do happen, so she got herself all involved in it. Troopers said Willis was interviewed on October the 10th, and she told authorities that she was inside the home and observed Parker eating a sandwich, blah, 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 and she had seizures. According to the court documents, Willis said Parker began to gasp for air and things of this nature. Like, I don't know why exactly she would lie, right? But, she did. It looks like she did, right? So unfortunate, but she's in jail. She's about to lose everything on it. That being said, it's pretty serious situation, obviously. And I actually bookmarked one more thing. I'll check out the comments in a second. I don't mean to be rude and see if y'all comment and say, "Oh man, y'all didn't comment." It's crazy, guys. Anyway, safety first, like I say always, And thank you, and I appreciate you regardless if you're just listening and stuff like that. We're about to get down to the bottom of this because I got some bookmarks, right? If I go to my bookmarks, I think it'll probably take us to where it is I'm trying to go. That didn't work out at all, man. What the heck? Okay, it's actually in here. It's in my broadcast folder, right? So we got some things that we want to talk about. We already saw this article, but we want to look at this article, which is also kind of one of the more recent items dealing with the whole Arabella Parker case. And as we were talking about earlier, it has more to do with Gerard Burgess. See, man charged in beating death of 3-year-old Arabella Parker wants to review children and youth records. I don't know if we're going to read this whole article. It's 2 paragraphs long. I might as well read it. So, Sunbury accused killer Gerard Burgess wants to know who the witnesses will be against him and wants his attorney to review Northumberland County Children and Youth Services records on 3-year-old Arabella Parker. Burgess, 19 of Trevorton, who was accused of beating Arabella so bad that it led to her death in November, he appeared in Northumberland County Court on Monday via video from the Northumberland County Jail. Right, Burgess, Mr. Gerard Burgess, through his public defender Richard Feudale, asked President Judge Charles Saylor to grant him access to the records. All right, he really wants access to those records. Saylor said the court should review the records. Feudale also said the case is a he said, she said. I mean, pretty much, I don't know if that's a legal term, but just as we said before, it's a matter of he said, she said, right? And really and truly, like it's the definition of he said, she said, right? So she said the case and that he wants to see a witness list and a medical records list for Arabella. Right? And you might wonder, well, what is he getting at? Well, Arabella died from her injuries on November the 22nd. Burgess and Arabella's mother, Samantha Del Camp, were charged with homicide. Del Camp, again, was charged as an accomplice. because state police says she knew about the abuse and did not report it. All right. Fudel said he believes reports were made to children and youth officials about abuse prior to Burgess meeting on Del Camp. And if you go onto their social medias and stuff like that, it's not hard at all to figure out when exactly they started dating. And it's been kind of well documented through the Steve Wilkos show and everywhere else. All right, just so when Burgess actually came into the picture, and he basically what he's saying, I mean, quite simply, is that he wants the records because it's going to show that little Arabella has been abused even before Gerard Burgess ever knew her, which would lead you to believe it would kind of lend itself more to the theory that the more simple theory that Samantha Del Camp is an abusive mother, and guess what? Those exist. Those are out there. I'm not trying to get at everybody's mother and stuff like that. I'm just saying that abusive mothers exist, and dirty, rotten, filthy liars exist. I'm not saying Samantha Del Camp is this. I'm saying that those exist, and they do need to be investigated. The most simple story is that Samantha Del Camp was always abusing her child and hates her child, all right? And will put on a front like that's not the case. And of course, he used the child for any number of things to include welfare or sympathy or this and that and the other. But again, still hates her little child, hated her back when she was alive, and for all intents and purposes, hated her father, Mr. Carl Parker. Hated him too. All right, whether or not she even wanted to admit it, hated his guts, hated his child's guts. All right, abused her constantly ever since she was little. That's what this little girl had to look forward to in her life. All right. Meanwhile, the theory goes, the most simplest theory is that yeah, all sort of drugs are involved in and around Samantha Del Camp, and to include Gerard Burgess, all sort of drugs going around in his vicinity, and that messed up his brains, and he was not thinking correctly. He took in the local, I don't know what word I want to use, but pretty much the local the local lowdown lady of the neighborhood snatched her up, easy pickings basically, snatched her up, said, hey, don't you want to live with me and stuff? That way we can get off and do all sort of various delinquent things and stuff behind the scenes. But, you know, that's basically his motivation. So he moves in this lady. Meanwhile, he's perfectly knowledgeable that she is a worthless tramp, hypothetically. This is just the theory that she's a worthless tramp, and she will take any reason to just lash out at her own daughter, and attempts to maybe blame her daughter for how ruined a life Samantha Del Camp led long before this incident. All right, that would be the most simplest theory if I'm not mistaken. Of course, I am taking suggestions. We are still getting the nitty gritty of it and trying to figure it out against all odds. What the hell is going on here? All right. Meanwhile, like we said, so he said, she said, if he were to get access to those records, I believe you'll find that, yeah, the little girl's been abused for a long time. And when that's going to be discovered, they're going to think to themselves, or perhaps you might ponder, well, okay, they knew Samantha Del Camp was abusing this girl, or they had their suspicions. And what did they do? Nothing. Did not a thing. And lots of times this is what takes place. This whole reason why I bring it up is because lots of times not a damn thing happens when it comes to this CPS or whatever abbreviation that they might have, these government agencies that are supposed to supposedly look after children. It always goes terribly wrong. That's what I'm here to suggest to you. And if I had to guess, it's a very bare bones industry, and that they're always looking. There's a mad turnover in this industry as far as CPS workers, government child protective type agencies. Mad turnover. They might get paid pretty well, but they also got student loans to pay off and stuff. They're between a rock and a hard place. And there's a lot of people who do things, wild, crazy things behind the scenes. And we're not going to dive all the way down that rabbit hole, but it's just to say that it's a system that quite honestly doesn't work in everybody's faces. And, it'd be cool to just recognize that it is completely irresponsible and that it basically leads to the destruction of the lives of many, many untold children. All right. But I guess to get to more to the point, and we're going to get off onto another story, is that we have all the technology, for example, in the world to find out. First of all, yeah, you could go to the records. Yeah, it is going to be very telling. And it's going to be all around negative when you think about it. It's not going to be a happy spot in that whole story, all right? That's true. But we do have the technology to find out exactly who is the one who literally gave the beatdown, the actual beatdown of that night, to the point of slamming this little girl's head on the ground or like on the couch or whatever it is that happened. We have all the technology that we would ever need to be able to find out exactly who done it. And that's right, those cell phone, those surveillance things that we were talking about earlier, it's as easy as just getting in those records, just typing it up, hacking it up, and of course they have it recorded, right? But still, we're playing this game, even in 2020, in which they're gonna pretend, oh, we're not recording everybody's audio all the time, and have it stored in databases over there in China. That's not what we're doing, all right? So to get off on a different story, we got a couple in mind, some follow-ups before we get out of here, but I did want to link this to something else. Ultimately, the story is about the tragic way in which most of these children out here do not ever receive justice or anything that ever comes close to it. All right, and that being said, there's people who get themselves involved in all sort of things, and they oppose all sort of things, and they say they protest all sort of things, and maybe I've protested to myself. I don't go out there and go to rallies and chant and stuff like that, but maybe like I've boycotted stuff on a personal level, and just I've felt offended by certain things, all sort of things. All right. At the end of the day, none of it really matters. Nothing really matters necessarily. But if we were to think about stuff's very crucial, is the fact is that these children out here, they don't get no sort of justice, and we're talking about most of them, the majority of them. And it's interesting now that we're finding out the news is totally covering up, and they're totally lying and having fake news, and they're hating on certain people, and to the point is that everybody's starting to ask themselves why. Why? All right. The why basically, I think, has pretty much everything to do with the abuse of children, as we were talking about earlier, and the covering up for it. And if you'd ask yourself even more whys, the whys is because that's what these people do. That's what they're involved in. All right. That's how they operate. Of course, everybody's coming to this channel. You already know this is how they get themselves initiated to different tiers of their little elite program and stuff like that. They think we don't know. Of course we know. We've been knowing about this. In fact, more and more people know every single day about y'all's little games that you're playing. All right. So that being said, they're trying to hold back. They're desperate as hell. This is the kind of stuff that they get down on. Rampant child abuse and abduction and everything else. All right. The disposal of small children. And they do it all in everybody's face. They celebrate it. For example, the whole abortion, like the not just the movement, but more so the infrastructure of it. They feed off of dead children and stuff like that. To the point is, it's almost unbelievable. But once we start noticing these things, we say, okay, well, that's your MO. And that is how you get down. You like this sort of thing, and you're celebrating it all in front of our faces. Well, we can only imagine what you're doing behind the scenes. And not only that, you and your friends are getting caught up every single day involving small children and stuff like that on your little freaking islands and stuff like that. We're figuring you out, all right? So with that being said, I wanted to draw attention during this broadcast, and I want to do it more so in the future. We're all going loosey-goosey around here and stuff, but randomly, not so randomly, it's kind of appropriate right now. I wanted to draw attention to this guy who I've seen on YouTube, right? You might not have heard of him, but I'm bringing him up for very good reason. All right, for very good reason. And like I said, I'm going to be talking about him and focusing on him more and more as time goes on, because it's kind of a spearhead. It's kind of right on the forefront. I don't know how many people know who I'm talking about, because the other day when I was told his name, I had never heard of him before. First of all, and we're going to get into this in the latter part of this broadcast, but David Hogg, if you go to his YouTube channel, I'm subscribed to it. I'm one of 11 subscribers. He's wildly unpopular, but we're going to talk about that later. All right, right now I want to shine a spotlight on this guy right here, Sean Atwood. Never heard of his name before. All right, until several days ago when I was listening actually to a Joe Rogan podcast. The Joe Rogan Experience. Shout out to that podcast. Obviously, that's the Holy Grail of podcast, and everybody knows it. So I was listening to that, and he had the man Eddie Bravo on. All right, real recently, and they were talking about all sort of things, chopping it up. And at one point, Eddie Bravo brings up this man right here, Sean Atwood. And so I had never heard his name before, but he said, bro, Sean Atwood is doing things. He's going nuts. He's like, dude, I watch it every day. And I was like, well, if Eddie Bravo is so entrenched in it, I got to at least find out what it is. So I took a look into it, right? And I come to find out, delightfully, to my surprise, that this guy is very, prolific. Like he is constantly putting in. I would assume that he has to have help on this, as far as uploading, editing, and stuff, and getting all this out. But it's so often. It's so often, and if we take a closer look into all these titles, you'll see that it's just they're so intriguing. All right. To summarize, basically what he's doing on here is what was his name? Sean Atwood. Sean Atwood is very, very good at not only doing research on his own and pretty much relaying what it is that he's finding, but he's very, very good at interviewing people and just diving into conversation. And the people he winds up interviewing lots of times are the likes of mob bosses, for example, like former mafia bosses, gangland bosses, people who've been in prisons in other countries, people who've been in doing wild stuff. Like, I guess let's get some examples. Let's see. Wild man enters Arizona jail. It's Peter Mahoney. I don't think that was an interview, but all right. Let's just suffice it to say, because there's a lot of different videos that I'm seeing right now. But for example, London Gangsters versus Bank Robbers, in which he talks to Chris Lambriano, who, if I remember, he might be a bank robber, or he might have been a cop, like looking after that sort of stuff. He talks to all sort of people. Sammy the Bull's crew, Peter Mahoney, people who just had experience in some of that real nitty gritty. That stuff that like Hollywood likes to talk about and makes movies about, glorifying and stuff all day. And meanwhile, it's based on true events. They wind up changing the story and manipulating it. All right. Instead, Sean Atwood just goes ahead and he talks to these people and gives them a forum. And I've noticed that it's so many that they must be seeking him out at this point. They find out about him. They know they have all stories to share with people and to unload. And so they seek him out, is what it seems like. And so he's been interviewing all sort of crazy, interesting people. All right. But what I wanted to mention here tonight specifically is he'll be talking to, for example, Dr. Sarah Good. She's one person, and he'll be talking about this one little girl from a long time ago. I'm not really familiar with her case.
I mean, in my book, because I was writing those books at the time.
I didn't mean to play that, y'all, but we're gonna play part of it. We're gonna play part of one of these videos just to give you a taste of what it is that they're doing. But I want to explain that he's interviewing, for example, Sarah Good, and there's a series of interviews that he's doing, in which he's taking a closer look, like a real deep dive into the world of abuse on children, all right, and just pretty much sexual predation on children. You see him right here. He's talking about Prince Andrew, Epstein, and elite deviants with Dr. Sarah Good. And it's just a series of videos he's been doing with Sarah Good, and I'm sure other people, in which it's focusing on the fact is that these children are absolutely helpless. They're being taken advantage of in untold numbers. It's kind of a culture of people when you're considering the elite and what they're talking about. And it's a culture amongst real people who really exist, who really do publish literature about how much they think that sexual advances on children is just something to do, right? And it's something that would blow our minds and stuff. And honestly, it's something that's so dastardly that most people tend to turn away from it and stuff in shock and horror. But I understand that the point of these interviews is to get a better insight in order to be able to recognize, okay, there is a culture out there. Okay, this is what they're perpetrating. Okay, they are laughing in our face and sometimes celebrating it and sometimes publishing literature about it and just carrying on about this and that sexual abuse towards children. All right, and to the point is where it's like, to the point is that they get so filled with their own nonsense that they regard it as a good thing, and their brains get so mixed up and mashed up, and their wires get crossed to the point is they don't know what's good and bad. They don't know up from down. All they know is they got an insatiable thirst for young children, and it is a thing. All right. And it is up at the tippy top of the elite. And guess what? Most people know it, especially people here on the internet. And there's some people out there who is so, I don't know what word you would use. Part of me would want to say low down, but just to be more sympathetic, some people are so ignorant, right, that they have no idea that this is going on. Right. Meanwhile, it sounds like a serious problem, and I would go and venture to say, and I've said it before, it is the only problem. All right. For example, the reason why people who are so furious at Donald Trump, no matter what he does, the reason why it looks so incredible and outrageous is because of Donald Trump's, for example, his celebration of babies and his adoration for babies. Right. Meanwhile, there's people lurking in the mist, all in the shadows, these not only elites, I don't care how much money you have, if it's in your culture that you think that children are some sort of a commodity that you could just use them up in whatever kind of way that you feel like and you think is a good thing, right? This kind of culture actually does exist, right? And people are becoming aware of it and very suspicious of, say, the elite people up in that kind of world of being suspect in regards to this sort of thing, all right? We're realizing that that's the case. And so when it comes to channels like this, it'll give you even more of an insight. You're already starting to realize that, okay, this is the program, this is how it gets down, and you want to know more details. So with that being said, since we're here, since I've kind of built it up already, we could play maybe a couple of minutes before it starts buffering of any number of these Dr. Sarah Good interviews. And it will make you sick to your stomach to listen to them. It's just two people talking, Sarah Good and our man Sean Atwood, but it will make you sick to your stomach. It made Sean sick. It made me kind of sick. I'm pretty sure Sarah Good, Dr. Sarah Good, was also kind of sick. But at the same time, it's very interesting. So I just want to get a little bit of taste and before we talk about some other things.
And people watching this, you know, this has come about because of our exploration into the Epstein case. We're trying to cover every single area we can of that kind of activity, interviewing all the different experts, interviewing people, you know, associated with the case. We're leaving no stone unturned. And Dr. Good has come on here today, and we're going to go over the psychology, the neuroscience, to try to understand how people like Epstein, why they think the way they do and why they behave that way. And at the conclusion, we want to suggest some ways that society can be improved by looking at this in a different perspective than the knee-jerk reaction that you just described the tabloid newspapers are advancing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is something which is happening in the lives of, we don't know how many young men, okay? It appears to be, I mean, there's very, very little research done on it, but if we use kind of like ballpark figures, we can say that approximately 1 in every 100 men, roughly speaking, 1 or 2 in every 100 men, will have a primary or exclusive sexual attraction to children. Okay, so we're not talking about incredibly low numbers. We're talking about people who you may very well know in your own life, type of thing. So these are the words of a chap when he was about 16. These were the sorts of thoughts that he had. He began to realise that he was what is called a paedophile. As the realisation of what this meant set in, it started to dawn on me that paedophilia as a disease must be like a cancer of the mind. What I knew about cancer was that it's a disease that starts off very small, so small you wouldn't even know it was there. As time goes by, it begins to consume everything around it, to the point that by the time you find out you have it, it would more or less be too late to do anything about it. Then it would kill you. I realised that paedophilia had started off small. I didn't even realise I had it all this time. I'm only 16 now, and that's why I'm still a good person. But as time goes by, paedophilia would slowly consume all that was good and decent inside me. And then it would only be a matter of circumstance and opportunity before I started raping, beating and destroying boys. There would be nothing I could do to stop it. Every night these thoughts would circle my head.
I think it's a little bit wild. See, this particular video, we're not going to spend too much time on this video, but we might check out a couple of different other videos real quick and get a little bit of insight. But in this particular point, I've seen this one before. She's describing how, like, an ordinary boy, hypothetically, say a 16-year-old boy, might get weird thoughts up in his head, all sort of confused. In a world full of confusion, obviously, to the point is where sexual confusion is celebrated and encouraged in the public schools, and it's like kind of how an ordinary boy might slip into it. You can see how people might wonder, well, how do people get into this sort of lifestyle? Now, she's describing a hypothetical in which you can imagine a 16-year-old boy in that situation in which he's attracted to slightly younger boys. And for some reason, as he grows older and stuff, his attraction stays to that general age range of boys and stuff. A little bit of a empathetic, I guess, angle towards it in attempts to really take a deep dive and understand what it is she's dealing with. And trust me, in the other interviews, she's talking about the real nitty gritty that she's gotten to understand. I mean, she's a real trooper for what she's done. The thing is, she's describing that, but at the same time, I can't help but assume in this hypothetical scenario that that young boy actually had been molested or somehow traumatized, to the point is he wouldn't even have these thoughts about younger boys. Like, that would never occur in his head had he not been traumatized prior to that incident. And every experience that I've at least heard about or become aware of, it seems to always come back to that, right? That's why, on my particular perspective, I would venture to say that there's really only one way that this continues, and that's through actual abuse and stuff like that. I don't want to get too tied off just in that aspect of it, but I want to talk more so about, like I was mentioning earlier, I guess I alluded to the very rich elite doing these sort of things as far as abuse. Now, if you remember back to the case that we were talking about, the Samantha Del Camp, the Gerard, these two people have no money. They're nothing. They're nobody's, just like you and me, right? Financially speaking. And that kind of gets covered up, but it's just kind of, what do you call it? Collateral damage, basically. The reason it's getting covered up is because, the system's not really geared towards effectively trying to combat the situation. Like, for example, if child abuse child sex trafficking, exploitation, if that were the number one thing that you're battling in the country, well, you would attribute all sort of funds to it. You'd have all sort of focus on it in a way that we're not doing today, and we've never done here in America. I imagine it hasn't been done so much around the world either. All right, you would focus on it a lot more, and you pay a lot more money to it, put a lot more resources into it, but instead you'll focus on other things, something else, all sort of different other things, all right, in order to distract. Why? Like I said, because that's what y'all are into. I don't know if it seems random, but that's the most satanic thing that people can even think of, is to take advantage of these children and exploit them and distract us in the meantime. And at the same time, like I said, we're kind of narrowing down on it. We're kind of getting a feel for how these things might happen, and therefore how to prevent it in the future, right? And mind you, there are all sort of groups out there and people out there who hide in the wings, if you will, in the shadows, and they either talk on Twitter or they talk about it in literature about normalizing the whole deal. And so there's a struggle against whether or not it should even be normalized in society, and of course it shouldn't be, but there are those elements. And trust me, it's the same elements, right? They work for the elites, if not, they directly are the elites, right? Basically, I want to talk about that just for, I guess, the majority of this here broadcast. But there's some other things that I wanted to bring up, all right? I guess just by way of following up on cases. I'm not sure what's the best video to play out of Sean Atwood, but I'm going to go ahead and do a little research and find out some of the best clips, and I might even put together a montage about some of the wild and just off-the-wall things that I've been hearing recently on his channel. All right, but like I said, just touch on some other things, cases that we've been following. A little while back in South Florida, we covered this one particular incident, and it had to do with domestic violence. More specifically, there was a murder that took place in South Florida. All right, and I forget exactly. I might actually have a bookmark. In fact, I think that I do. So we're gonna just go ahead and cut to that. But there was a murder that took place in South Florida, and it is very typical. And I have my theories about it, and I have my guesses as to what's going to be found in the future, but only time will tell. And so with that being said, I do believe we should have an article about it, and we don't. All right, totally messed up. But we can go to Google and just type it in. South Florida. What we're talking about is a little baby by the name of Andrew. Baby Andrew, and I believe it's Andrew Caballero. That's how you pronounce it. Alright, I'm trying to get to Google right now. Alright, and check up on it. Okay, so while we're getting there, baby Andrew, missing baby in Florida, missing baby Andrew. While we're going up and, typing it up, checking on it, just to catch people up on it, you might be familiar. Like I said, there was a murder that took place. There's a man, I believe it's this man right here. I believe it's that, or no, that's probably a different guy. Anyways, there was a man, all right? He had a baby, and that's the baby here on the left, all right? I'm not sure who's this guy on the right. It's a Connecticut man charged with killing his girlfriend. Baby's still missing. I guess that might be his father. Now, I know this took place in Florida. It's all very confusing, actually, to be honest. I guess the man was from Connecticut. We're still taking in some of the details. All right. Okay, but this took place in Florida, from what I understand. All right. Anyways, it was a murder. He killed his baby mom, which would be this lady probably right here. And he also killed her mom, and he also killed that lady's mom. All right. Allegedly, as reports go, he shot them all up. And I'm not sure with what. And I want to know with what. All right. I can't remember if I heard if it was with a rifle, but there's a reason why I asked that. Okay, because the story goes that he kills these ladies, and he snatches up this baby that you're seeing to the left, baby Andrew. Snatches him up, and then he makes a break for it. All right, so police become aware of this whole situation eventually. They become alerted to it, and they immediately start on the hunt for this guy. And I forget what his name is, actually, the father. All right, might as well click on one of these. They immediately go on the hunt for him, and they find him, actually. And if I understand correctly, reports say outside of a wooded area, all right, kind of a secluded area. And I believe they found him in his vehicle. Now, I'll go ahead and correct it if it's any different, but from reports that I've seen, they found him up in a vehicle, and it sounded kind of weird to me. All right, we're going to discuss that in a second, but they found him in a vehicle, and he had been killed. All right, and just as you would imagine, the reports are that he, in fact, killed himself. All right. And to me, that sounds very typical. All right. And I went ahead and I pieced together the rest of the story. It's not being mentioned over the news. Nobody's venturing to guess the particular guess that I have. And the guess that I have is that this guy, for whatever reason, there's miscommunication or mad just confusion over this here newborn baby. The baby is about a little bit over a week old at that time. There's confusion over this baby. All right. For whatever reason, there's drama. For whatever reason, baby Andrew's father gets it in his head that he's going to kidnap this baby. Now, you can guess as to why that is. And my guess would be that the baby mama was giving him all sort of grief about just maybe taking his baby and never letting him see the baby ever again. All right. Now that's just a guess, and maybe it wasn't exactly that, but you can imagine it being that sort of thing, which she's giving him all sort of grief and promising to put him on child support or this and that, or just I don't know what I don't know. Right? It's none of my business. All right, but it leads to a heated event, and he winds up concocting a plan. All right. Albeit an ill-advised plan, all right? He concocts one, and he's going to kidnap this child. And then, I don't know, in my heart of hearts, I'm thinking of this guy because he looks Mexican. He's gonna try and book it for the Mexican border and somehow live his life in Mexico. Thing is, he's an older man. I think he was up into his upper 40s. If not early 50s. He's getting old. As far as bearing children, that might have been his first child. Anyways, I'm guessing all this sort of stuff, right? Because I don't know all the details. I would like to hear the rest of the details, all right? If the news is going to pretend to cover this situation, I would like to hear it. But of course, they're not good at what they do. So all these questions that I have, and then maybe you have, they don't get answered, right? But I feel like he concocted a plan where he's going to kidnap his child, run off with his child. It did not work out. There was a snafu. It was not going to work out. All right. Like I said, perhaps he was going to try to run to Mexico. The lady put the kibosh on it. It was not going to happen. He panics. He gets all flustered, whatnot. He's passionate and Latino. I don't know. Something bad happens. He winds up killing everybody, taking a baby. Right. At that point, he realizes full well every amount of evidence is against him, and there's no way he's getting away with this. And they will hunt him down even if he goes to Mexico. In fact, he's not going to make it to Mexico. Right. There's no way he's getting out of this, and he knows it. All right. And he might be operating on adrenaline when he snatches up the baby, takes the baby somewhere else, and we're going to talk about that. And then later on, the adrenaline wears off. He realizes he is straight up and down effed. There's no way he's getting away from this. All the evidence is pointed directly at him. So he's like, I don't want to spend the rest of my life in jail necessarily. It's a done deal. I already did what I did, so might as well shoot myself. And honestly, I think that is what happened. All right. As we're looking at this article, we might read a little bit of it. I don't know if it's even necessary. But okay. My theory is, obviously, he gave the baby to somebody else, And the person he gave the baby to was somebody that he talked to beforehand, right? And that he's not just gonna run up on someone and say, "Here, take my baby," and assume that they're gonna take it and be down with his plan, all right? That's asking a little bit much. I mean, you would assume that person would go straight to the authorities and be like, "Look, this baby, this guy just gave me the baby, and I didn't take this baby," you know, and you would return the baby. Okay, so the developments are this. As you can imagine, there are no developments. They're looking for this baby, and they're using all the implements that they can implement, basically. All right, just everything you think of. They're spreading out far and wide, looking for this baby. And as far as I can understand, they're still looking for this baby, and they're using all sort of bloodhound dogs and everything else, expecting. Because it is a possibility, fully expecting to find a dead baby body, right? Meanwhile, that has nothing to do with my theory at all, and that honestly, that is so unlikely in my eyes. All right, if you're just guessing about this story with what we've been given, it just seems um, beyond. It would almost seem random that this baby comes up dead. All right. Most likely scenario is that this baby's alive, but they're looking all over for it. Meanwhile, the baby has not got turned in yet. You'll notice they're still looking for it. They haven't found this baby. And the thing is, I venture to say that they're not gonna find this baby. This baby's good as gone, right? This baby has disappeared in the abyss. And I don't know if this baby's gonna have a different name or what's gonna happen. See, this is why my theory all comes into place, because if there was connections and family, say up in Mexico, there you go. All right, you can kind of disappear. All right, that might very well happen. And so, if that were the case, well, then of course, or perhaps to Cuba. I don't know if they have family members in Cuba because it is Florida. But let's just say they're not gonna find this baby. This baby's gone. And this guy gave the baby to exactly what I just said. All right, and so the baby's gone. Right. There's definitely ways that you could figure it out, probably. More than likely, you could figure it out, but all the investigators involved in this, for whatever reason, they're gonna play dumb. They're gonna play dumb, and I don't think anything's gonna come of it. At the end of the day, they're just gonna call this another missing baby and just call it a day. For better or worse, I don't really know if I agree with it or don't, but they're still trying to play dumb. All right, of course, this is what took place. It's kind of dumb that y'all are looking for a dead baby body. I don't think you're gonna find it. But I guess to cover all bases, to be responsible, I guess you do have to go out there and search for the baby body. Meanwhile, you're likely gonna find any number of other different bodies while you're looking for it. I mean, you're over there in South Florida, anyways. All right, so that's just that's an update on baby Andrew. I don't think we're ever gonna hear from him again. All right. And I thought I would bring him up. All right. And there's some other cases, I guess, that we were going to follow. I can't really think about them right now. All right. I don't really know exactly what we're going to follow up. Like, for example, I guess since we're following up on cases, let's go ahead and put a visual up on it. A few days ago, I can't remember when, we were talking about Cambodia. Now, everybody's been talking about this coronavirus. And trust me, it's terrifying when you think about it. Just real briefly on the coronavirus, we might talk about it a little bit more before we get out of here, but it sounds terrifying. Like, people could be making up the stories, people could be embellishing, and people could be getting all the facts wrong. Who's to say? I'm over here, I'm straight chilling. I don't know about you, but I'm not exactly panicking. But at the same time, I've heard all sorts of stories from fairly credible sources, to be honest with you. To include on YouTube, but even past YouTube, all sort of people saying the same damn things. Right? It's very rare when I hear like the extreme fringe, like for example, in Alex Jones saying the same exact thing as people who are mainstream are saying, and who are saying the same exact thing that people on We Are Change are saying. They're saying the same exact thing that several other different people from different angles are saying the same type of things, all right? To include, of course, a frantic it's not a quarantine, but they're trying to isolate a frantic isolation attempt, if you will, and I guess large areas of China. All right, and big old cities and stuff. People are being quarantined down. As you're seeing all sort of videos popping up on the internet of people in very weird situations, getting locked into their houses. People are locked in and outside of their houses. All sort of people's pets are dying. People's children are dying because they're separated from their children. Literally, like quarantine in place, can't move. I don't care where your dang children are at. Your children are gonna die without you, and they have done it. All right, there was this one boy I heard about with cerebral palsy. He was left to starve to death. All right, over there in China, quarantine is pretty serious. This is what the stories I've been hearing about, right? So very serious. I was something that it's like we might as well talk about it every time we come on live broadcast because it is that serious. At the same time, like I said, I don't think it benefits anybody to panic, especially if you're a world away, like I am. For example, that's not to say that I'm out of like the danger zone. All right, by any means. In fact, they're literally shipping people with coronavirus who they know are infected with coronavirus to the city I live in right now. All right, San Antonio, Texas. And they've been doing it. And they're going to continue to do it for the foreseeable future. So it's not to say we're out of the danger zone. It's just to say that panicking doesn't really help anybody anyways. All right. That being said, they're doing a whole bunch of panicking over there in China, and I'm hearing wild stories. Not only those videos where people are being held up almost at hostage with, they better have been prepared for this sort of thing because they're really hitting hard times up in quarantine over there in parts of China. All right. But I'm hearing different various stories, as you might have very well heard, about people getting snatched up, people trying to cross certain borders to no avail, getting caught up, all right, by basically military style people. And I've heard of people getting shot in the head. All right, might be made up, could be a fake story and a hoax and stuff. I don't know. But being shot in the head for trying to escape, basically. All right, ain't no escaping. You stay put. All right. They're gonna put kind of the kibosh on it. I'm not sure how far it's gonna go. I don't know if it's real stories that I'm hearing, but the stories that I'm hearing sound, if we're gonna go super stereotypical, sound like Nazi Germany. All right, so just so that everybody can understand, it sounds like many different times throughout history in which countries have murdered their own people, or at least left them for dead. It sounds exactly like that. It sounds like execution vans and things of that nature. It sounds like internment camps and quarantining cities of, of 11 million some odd people. Right? It sounds like epic nightmares beyond Twilight Zone, just absolute devastation. That's what it sounds like. Right? I wanted to bring that up real quick, and I forget actually why I brought that up necessarily, although it is very important, and I would like to get y'all's feedback, what you think necessarily is going on. Trust me, I've heard all sort of different theories, very ranging all throughout the spectrum of what they think is going on as far as that whole coronavirus. All right, I forget exactly why I brought it up, but I do know that I wanted to bring up Cambodia because we were talking about it. And that's another Asian country, not very far from China. In fact, there's many people in Cambodia talking to no end about the coronavirus, as you can imagine. All right, it does affect them. And I typed in Zambodia. That's not a real word. Cambodia. All right, and I want to just take a quick look at their news because it wasn't long ago that they were talking about all these dog slaughtering pits that you might not have heard of. All right. In fact, I imagine most people hadn't heard of this, although we know that there's some questionable Asian countries and sometimes people's cultures are different and this and that. Now it's totally not talking about it, but let me just, okay, if I type in Cambodia dogs, it's going to pop right up. Here's the thing. The other day, it was at the top of the list for Cambodia. It was all what everybody was talking about. These dogs and the slaughtering pits, all right? And as you can see from these articles, as we wind it down, all right, I'm pretty sure we've gone over the time limit. All right, y'all, we're gonna take it easy on a Sunday evening, but we'll as we wind it down, maybe 5 or 10 more minutes. I want to talk about Cambodia and that they had these sort of articles, and you're reading it right now. I don't know how many times they copied and pasted it, probably dozens. But nonprofit's mission: ending the slaughter of dogs for meat in Cambodia. That's one thing. Millions of rabies-infected dogs. And I believe that was the first article we came across. That's what first caught my eye. Millions of rabies-infected dogs being slaughtered for meat in drowning pits in Cambodia, as proclaimed by the Daily Mail. And I sincerely doubt it. And when you think about the numbers, that doesn't even make sense. Like, how is it even possible? And I doubt that it is possible to have millions of rabies infected dogs all at one time in one country. I don't think it's possible. I don't think it's self sustaining. That's not to say that it couldn't happen, but if it did happen, your country would be in total calamity and it would destroy itself. Either that or you'd have to murder all these dogs all at once and totally wipe them all out. Right. So it's for that reason that, my keen eye caught the story and I was like, that just doesn't sound right. I think this guy's embellishing. And the guy who actually was involved in writing the article for Daily Mail, or at least contributing the information, he was, not to get too far into it, he was involved in himself in a charity. I believe it's called the Four Paws Charity. Something to do with dogs, and I don't know how he wound up in Cambodia or what he was attempting to do there, but once he got there, he described all these situations in which it was a nightmare scenario of dogs and stuff like that. And look, we can actually look at the article and kind of see what it is he's talking about, because there were some pictures actually. All right, phone freezing up, but there were some pictures actually included in the article. We might as well take a look at them. Anyways, after this article, as you were seeing right there a second ago, I don't know if Daily Mail is going to come up. It's one of those websites, all right? It takes a lot of power, all right, in order to bring up in Daily Mail. But okay, as you can see, the bullet points: dogs infected with rabies, foul-smelling shed covered in cobwebs, photographer who captured horrific images described a scene as a scene from hell. All right. Charity found killings hidden near one of Cambodia's busiest tourist attractions. And that's of note. When I say right next to one of the busiest tourist attractions, I think they're saying that for a reason, right? Because, yeah, it could be part of their culture and stuff like that, but he's trying to put across that, okay, if you're a tourist, you might be perhaps only feet away from all sort of dog torture, all right? He's trying to implant that in your head, and I noticed that immediately, all right? And you go through the rest of the article, you look at some of the pictures. For example, I don't know if we're going to come across it, but they did have a picture, and part of the article was talking about, see, it's hard, we might get into this, it gets very graphic, right? You might not even want to see the dogs in this sort of situation if you're from America or something like that. All right, so also wild pictures to include a monkey who is overseeing the operation. And they talk about it in the article, this monkey that was chained up and somehow, some way was overseeing the operation. And it's at that point that I realized not only is this fake and kind of contrived and stuff, but people are going over the top with it, man. You're making it sound like magical. You're making it sound like if Aladdin was a crazy nightmare or something like that. Like, you have a monkey. I mean, it's that straw that broke the camel's back when you said that there was a monkey chained up overseeing the whole operation. Right? See, there's the monkey. It sounds like I'm making it up. No, there's a picture of the monkey that they accuse of having something to do with it. Meanwhile, he's a victim because he can't even leave. He's chained up. All right. Anyways, like I said, I was venturing to say it's fake news and it's contrived and stuff. Meanwhile, I know people in Cambodia, and I was talking about it earlier. I said, you know what? Let me talk to my people in Cambodia. I did earlier today. I talked to them. And amongst other things, we talked about it a little bit. I let him know the accusations towards the country he's living in. And he told me a little bit of insight in on it. As you might imagine, a lot of these countries here in Asia, probably similar. In Cambodia, they do have a problem with stray dogs, right? Just as you might imagine, as you probably imagine even if you never read this article, they do kind of have a problem with stray dogs, right? And I, from what I've seen in this article and who the writers of this article, the contributors, what they're doing is taking advantage of this aspect. All right, they know we don't know much about Cambodia, and certainly they do have all sorts of stray dogs. And I'm not gonna put it past them that they have restaurants serving dog meat. All right, yeah, it's part of their culture that it's not gonna get embraced over here. All right, and we'll just leave it at that. Agree to disagree. I already knew that about these Asian countries, and sometimes it's places like in America. Like I've heard weird stories in which some people eat dogs and stuff. It's unheard of over here. You agree to disagree. I'm not gonna make a big deal of it. I mean, if I were to think to myself whether or not I wanted to go on a tourist vacation to Asia, I probably wouldn't be thinking about all the different dogs that get killed and ate over in Asia. And I know that they do. Right? It'd just be kind of an afterthought to me, honestly. That being said, I don't have any plans to go to Asia. I don't have any interest in going to Asia. All right, but if I did, I would already know that about their dogs. Okay. So it seems as though my hunch is correct because after talking to my people on the ground, they let me know, yeah, there's a lot of stray dogs and it is kind of a problem. As far as describing the country of Cambodia as being peppered with dog killing mills, and slaughtering dogs to the tune of millions, and not only just dogs, but rabies infected dogs, and to the point of getting the constant entertainment from the torture of the dogs. I think that's taken it a little bit overboard. I think you're being hyperbolic. Now, that being said, are there instances in Cambodia where certain people might behind the scenes torture dogs for fun and have all sort of malicious intent towards dogs? Yeah, that probably does happen. And I bet you it happens in America too. And I'm not advocating for it, but I'm just saying it's like, I think you're taking it a little bit overboard. Do they treat the dogs so well? Probably not, but it's their own situation. It's like it's one of those things where it's not our business, dude. If you like dogs so much, why don't you just stay in America or stay where in a country where people don't have this dog problem? To me, I felt like you got, for whatever reason, be it financial, I don't know if you're trying to sabotage the tourism industry in Cambodia. I don't know what's your vendetta, or if you just got so emotionally outbursted that you decide to attack Cambodia, all right, and their tourism industry by saying they're swimming in rabies infected slaughtered dogs and basically all they eat all day long is dogs. That's not actually the case, right? And I wanted to put the kibosh on that. That being said, I'm running out of wind, running out of a little bit of energy. I appreciate all y'all for coming out. And obviously, I don't want to keep my neighbors up too long, too late by just mumbling and jumbling about all sort of this and that nonsense, right? So I do want to go ahead and wind it down here. That being said, as I wind it down and say goodnight to all y'all and say that I appreciate y'all. Y'all are all wonderful snowflakes. Whether or not we talk very much, know that I appreciate y'all and I respect you. And I'm waiting for you to let me know what's good in the streets. All right, let me know what's really popping. I'm just waiting for you to do it. But until then, just know that I appreciate you out there. All right, as we wind it down, and I want to say that as we wind it down, a number of different other things are just popping into my head. Right, as far as all these other cases that we've been following and the developments that I already have to share with y'all on all these things. And there's no time to do it now, and of course I don't have the energy to do it now, but there's always more. I guess we'll leave it on that note. It always seems that there's always more, you guys. And I don't know if you feel that way about listening to things. I feel that way as well about listening to things, but not only that, about saying things, relaying messages becoming aware of what's going on, sharing information, sharing intel with each other. There's always more. There's always more. And it's like the human. It's a part of human nature to look back at a certain point and actually be afraid of not sharing enough. All right, the notion of wanting to share it all at once, wanting to communicate everything right now, all this wild stuff we've been listening to and hearing about and seeing and experiencing, wanting to get it all out right now and almost having anxiety over it. Almost, you know what I'm saying? There's times when I think to myself, oh man, I want to have a broadcast later just because there's these things and I want to talk about them. I want to talk about them. I want to talk about them. But, you know, of course, at a certain point, you get flustered. Like, if I attempted to do a daily thing, like 5 days out of the week, for example, that would probably be too much. And I would get overwhelmed by it. There's a certain point at which it's not meeting its maximum potential, basically, as far as quality of broadcast, all right? And it's all sort of things that I would want to relay, and it's all sort of things that I want to hear from y'all and stuff like that. And I wish I could do it 24/7, for example, but that's not possible. And also at the same time, you know, it's probably not efficient. All right. And so it's a careful, delicate balance, all right, that I'm experiencing right now, that you're probably experiencing. And it all comes back to what we were talking about at the beginning with our man Valentine Hogg. All right. Very delicate balance that we're trying to find right now in these days in which we're becoming very desperate, especially on certain people's behalfs. I mean, they're growing very desperate and power hungry and just absolutely maniacal in their tyrannical fashion, right? These people out here, and they're walling out, and they're totally disrespecting us. They're taking advantage of children. They're doing it in our faces and stuff like this, right? We don't want to feel like we lowballed it later on in the future. We don't want to look back and say, "Oh, we didn't try our 100%. We didn't put in our 100% effort." All right. That might be the case. Perhaps we could be putting in 100% all the time. All right. IRL, as the kids say in real life, we could be putting in 100%. But I know that I'm not going to do so on the internet necessarily. And probably you're not either. All right. And so, you know, we do what we can while we can, you know, just at the right speed, basically. I believe that's what we're doing. And I believe that, you know, we don't have nothing to worry about in that regard necessarily. At the same time, there's going to be improvements that are going to be made, all right? And I'll holler at you about them later. There's so many things that I didn't even bring up on this broadcast that I meant to bring up, all right, that I completely forgot, and I don't have the energy to do it. But we're going to talk about them later. In fact, we have a scheduled broadcast for tomorrow. So, you know, of course, we can't miss that. All right, and I believe it's going to be lit. I believe it's going to be official and 100%. You're not going to want to miss it, all right? No matter what, you better be glued to your cell phone, all right? Because it's really going down tomorrow night. And I appreciate you, and I'll see you there. It's February the 9th, 2020. I'll holler at y'all a little bit later.